Hello, you guys. Hello, hello. I thought it would be a good idea to turn the ringer off on my phone. Welcome. I am Carmen Woodland. I am a myofunctional therapist, also known as the tongue trainer or myofunctional educator extraordinaire. Hey, Amy, I see you here. I am really excited to be here. I'm going to be here with Margaret again tonight. She will be joining us, but a couple things. I've got a couple announcements. First, if you were with us last week, you know that we had some tech issues. So funny story, my sweetheart pulled into the driveway towards the end, and he decided that my car decided that it was going to connect. I'm welcoming Margaret in here, but I'm going to keep talking. So my car connected to the Instagram live that Margaret and I were having in the house. I'm just telling everybody about this last week about my car hijacking our Instagram live.
Yes.
So hopefully everything goes well tonight. Now, before we jump in, Margaret, I'm going to make a couple announcements. So for anybody in the audience or anybody watching this, I just wanted to do a reminder that I've already taught the lesson for the Whole Brain Parenting Summit. That is a free virtual summit, and that is next, it's the 25th through the 29th. So I put a link in my bio for people to register. It's free. The lesson I am teaching is about root cause resolution. So helping parents identify 6 areas where they can start making changes, you know, not putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound for their kiddo so that they can thrive and so we can find root cause resolution for some things. So that's next week. So you can see my lecture there. Mommy Myo and Me will be opening. Margaret and I are going to talk about that later. I know a lot of you guys are here to learn about that because that's a program that is not always available. So we'll be talking about that. November 4th, I will be live with Dr. Kimberly Santiago from AirSync Wellness. She's in Washington. She's a tongue tie doctor. And so that's going to be really fun. We're going to be talking about tongue ties one day, and then we're going to be doing another one on breathing, disordered sleep. So
that's awesome.
Right. And so we've got all of that going on. So Margaret and I tonight are kind of continuing our conversation from last week. In addition to, as I promised, she's going to talk about fascia. So a little bit of the backstory. She went on a podcast. Hey, Margaret, why don't you talk about it? That's how I gotta listen.
Yes.
I heard her with Matt Blackburn. So just bit of background so they can go find that podcast.
Yes. So I invited myself on a podcast to talk about tongue ties, mostly because the guy who hosts the podcast, he was like, well, if you have something new or exciting or novel to share, you know, let me know and I'll see if we can get you on the podcast. And I was like, you haven't had anyone talk about tongue ties and like myofascial connections. And he was like, that sounds interesting. Are you available this day? And I was like, yes, I am. So he just had me on. So it was really fun. And I don't think he had anyone on that had talked about tongue ties before or the connections. So that was super fun.
Yeah. And that's why, so then I started getting all these emails and stuff, which I told you.
Yes.
Gosh. So then I had to go listen to it. And I haven't gotten 100% all the way through it. Every time I try, I have to back up to see where I was at. But
yes,
for you to talk about fascia. So let's just jump in. Both of us have collected some questions. I have some from last time that we were having technical issues. So, and a couple things I didn't follow up on. So the first question is, how do you find a doctor who has experience with this in your area? Margaret and I did talk about this last week, and then I never gave her the information for the Facebook Live that I had done for questions to ask. So I did go today and there's a link in my bio that says considerations to find a tongue tie provider. You guys, they're questions that you have to ask. That's the biggest thing. You have to interview them just like they interview you, really. And so finding the right person, Margaret was lucky because she was unlucky to have children with tongue ties. So, yes. So you just might not find somebody in your area. That's the biggest thing. I always tell my clients, be willing to travel. I have people come from 5 states away to see my provider here in Colorado. I have people, I've got one person in Montana and one, they're all scattered around, but they're good. So, so definitely, if you have more questions on that, definitely you can look in my videos, my stories. I talk about this a lot. Okay. Which leads me to the next thing. How do you know if you have a tongue tie? You have to have somebody help you figure that out.
Yes. And she can help you. She helped me. Yes.
If you go to the doctor and you ask them about a tongue tie, most of them are going to say, hey, stick your tongue out. Nope, you're fine. If you don't have a speech impediment and it doesn't bother you that you can't lick an ice cream, you're fine. But what they just told you is that the genioglossus muscle works, because the only movement that it does is it goes forward. So it didn't do anything to look about the posterior part, about the back tongue. Okay. So just looking at this is called the free tongue. Just looking at that doesn't tell you anything. When I do an exam with somebody, I look at pictures, videos, all of your symptoms, all of that stuff. We've talked for 90 minutes. I've written a huge comprehensive report, and I've had you do, a dozen functional exercises, something so I can see how the muscles work. So you do not identify a tie based on parents. Yes, I know that some is low-hanging fruit. I get that, okay? That's an obvious tongue tie, but most of my world is not obvious tongue ties, okay? And so and then I talk a lot about that too. So if you dig into my Instagram stories or my IGTVs, you're going to find a lot of stuff where I'm fired up over people saying, hey, no, my doctor just had me open my mouth. No.
Yeah. Not a good assessment.
Right. The other one, and Margaret, we touched on this, right, is when they should start Myo, because you shared a little bit about your journey. Yeah. And the biggest thing, you guys, is I start my clients 2 months ahead of time. It takes that long. Okay. In rare cases, we can put some spank on it, if you will, and we're ready in 6 weeks or whatever. But I don't want my people to shortchange themselves. It's a crazy time of year. Margaret and I were just talking about, like, it's the holidays. We want to eat, drink, and be merry, not be hacking into any parts of our body. And everybody wants to be taken care of over the holidays. It just blows my mind. So I'm fielding all of these emails saying, hey, I want to get started with you, but I want to have it done. I can get an appointment December 7th.
Yeah. And you're like,
no, you can. Yeah, you can. But should you? No.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have talked a lot about what the process looks like. So I'm going to just kind of skip over that one, because I think we'll probably get into that one more. So we have new questions for tonight. And some of these are for Margaret. Some of these are for me. So Margaret, I'm going to give you the honor of talking about actually, let's save that one for when we segue into talking about the orange. Are you going to talk about the orange?
Yes,
right?
I'll give you that. Yeah, that analogy. That's my favorite one. So yes, we will.
Okay. So then the first one for you says, Margaret, do you mind telling which program of Carmen's you did? So like I was telling you, a lot of people ask me about this, and they feel like I can just talk 100% open about you because we've talked about your journey so much. So there's obviously not a lot of confidentiality going on. But I'm going to answer somebody and say, hey, this is what program she did. So I think what they're meaning is, because if they go to my website, they can see comprehensive, they can see phase 1, and they can see phase 1 hybrid. So you want to answer that? Are you fine?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So the package that I got was the one, I guess it was your hybrid, correct? Like the one level, or the hybrid, where you have videos that are recorded, and then you have face-to-face, like as you go along. So some of your packages have like every single appointment is a video call. But this one was a hybrid, because I know from my personality and how I am, I'm very self-motivated. I like to make my own progress, and seeing, I like to just follow the prescription, so to speak. And that works really well for me. And so knowing if you're looking into this, you may want something that you may know about yourself that you need a little bit more accountability. And that's where something would come in where you have a little bit more of those, meeting more regularly. So yeah, I did that tier of support and I was really happy with it. So.
And it was awesome. And that kind of leads me to another question that I had for you that says, what was the hardest part of finding success with your Myo program? I've really struggled with my therapist, and I wonder if it's me or her. So maybe somebody's having a hard time, but I think the question that they're asking is, why were you successful with that program? What do you think was the hardest part that you had to do, or what was there a hard part?
Yeah, that's a good question because people don't know what to expect going into it. So for me, I know that there were times when you would assign something and I'd be like, I can't do that, Carmen. Like, I can't make a bowl shape with my tongue inside my mouth. And I'd be like, there's no way I can do that. Yeah, exactly. Which I can do it now. But it's like, I, at the time, was thinking, there's no way I can do this. And so I had to kind of mentally shift and go, okay, she's asking me to do this, so it's surely possible. Like, at that point, my tongue was free. So I had the release. I knew I had the mobility. So pushing through those times when you're like, wow, this is more challenging. People don't think that, moving your tongue from side to side or doing this or doing that would be challenging, but there is something about it that is challenging. It's like a workout for your tongue. So you have to be committed to that and know that the results at the end, if you put in the work, the results will, and the outcome will be good for you. You're going to prepare, you're going to have release, you're going to do the therapy afterwards. So yeah, getting through those times where you'd be like, I don't know if I can do this. Or I remember particularly, I was in May, so I had the release in March, and it was, a couple months after, and there was some more advanced stuff that we were doing. And I was kind of like, I remember learning the new exercises. I was like, I can't do this. And I just did it how I could. And then guess what? The next day I could do it even more. And then by 2 weeks or however long that cycle of the particular move was, I could do it in my sleep. No problem. It was not hard. You just have to understand also your body is adaptive. Your body will learn how to do it. And you can train your tongue to do what it needs to do. So anyway, that's kind of my answer.
Well, and self-motivation,
Yes.
and do a great job, explaining that if you're not going to, and that's what I tell people, if you're not going to be self-motivated to do the work, perhaps maybe I'm not even the right therapist for you, because yes, I kind of want you to do it. And I always say, I want you to do it because I have a large practice that's around the world. And I also have a significant reputation that I want to protect and be successful. And so I don't want you to pay me and not do anything. So self-motivation is a big part of Myo for sure. So I knew you would be successful with hybrid when I first met you. Okay, so let's talk. So I want to save that one. Do you have one on your list?
Yes, I do. Let's see. I had a couple of questions that pulling people on my page. Let's see. Oh yeah, there was another one. Do we want to ask what did I eat post-operatively? Is that a good one to ask now? And then we can do the other one that was about practical ways to reduce the need for orthodontics. We'll do that. Maybe we'll do both of those.
Okay.
But so for me, after the release, I ate a lot of cold things because that was what my provider told me. But in all honesty, it was like 2 or 3 days later. It was on day 3 or 4. I was eating completely normally. I was expecting, oh my gosh, I'm going to be doing liquids forever. Like, you think that, and then you have the release and you're like, oh, it's actually, I'm, eating normally on day 3. So really it was those 2 days I did soft things. I did some soups. I did some things that, like a chilled, like smoothie type of thing, just easy stuff to get down, because it is important that your tongue keeps moving. You don't just want to, it's 2 surfaces. If you do not move the tongue, it's going to heal like this. So yeah, it's important to keep moving the tongue. For me, at least, I knew that was important. So yeah, I did cold stuff. And then do you want to do the one about the what are some practical ways to reduce the need for orthodontics in our kids because of crowding?
Let's save that one towards the end when I'm ready to talk about at the end when we'll talk about Mommy My Own.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds good.
Okay.
That way we'll tie that in at the end. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. And remember, you guys, we see your questions popping through here. We're answering the questions that we had asked, but we will go back through and make sure that these all get answered too. So we've got you. We see you. And we'll make sure that you get answered. Okay. So this next one says, how to help toddlers and young kids to stop mouth breathing at night. Again, I suppose this ties into many, mommy, Myo, and me also.
Yes.
So it's hard. So toddlers and young kids, the first thing, you guys, I think, is looking for the root cause resolution, whether that can be diet related. So many parents come to me and they want me to help Johnny quit mouth breathing, but Johnny is allergic to Fluffy, and Fluffy sleeps on Johnny's chest at night. And then mom doesn't quite understand why we have to make some changes there. So I think I always say exploring the diet, trying to figure out why the mouth breathing is going on. Tonsils are a biggie, and I know this is a hot button for parents because they want the tonsils in there to do their job. But if the tonsils are suffocating Johnny at night, and they're the obstructions, they got to come out of there. And we talked about this, right? Didn't we, Margaret, last week?
Yes.
On tonsils? Sometimes, parents will say, hey, I don't want to do that. Can fixing my kids' breathing help switch them over? Well, in theory, yes, but if the tonsils have been chronically inflamed for a long time, we're not going to see them shrink. And also, we're not going to see them shrink if we can't get the mouth closed. And so it's like the chicken or the egg thing. What you can't do is just tape your kid's face shut because you're going to freak them out. And I have lots of parents that come to me and they have perhaps met with another provider, another therapist, been told to do it, to just tape the mouth shut. And it is horrific for their child. So we don't just want to put a Band-Aid on the bullet wound. We want to try and find that root cause resolution. So trying to figure out, is there a tongue tie? Is there something that's causing this? And I will be teaching about this in the root cause resolution lecture that I talked about at the summit. And I'm also going to teach one of those live coming up. And it talks about the 6 things that parents can do, 6 things that you need to know about craniofacial development. And we go over some of those things. So I'm not going to go over all of those here, but watching for misguided craniofacial development. If you have this kiddo with this cute little button chin, and you look at them from the side and the nose, lip, chin are going backwards, and we have a recessed mandible, that's an airway compromise. Your kiddo has to breathe through the mouth, so sometimes it's behavioral, sometimes it's obstructive. And then, you guys, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree too. So if you are a gaping mouth breather, then we got to fix you too, so that you can model that positive behavior for your kiddo. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about Mommy, Myo, and me, but there are things that you can start to do to educate your kiddo on, okay, hey, we got to close the lips. Can you make it into a game? Can you do something? But if there's a deviated septum, if there's swollen turbinates, if there's allergies, dust, dairy, dander, gluten, sugar. Obviously, alcohol is not a big deal for kids, but it is for adults.
Yeah, that's true.
And what's the fourth one? Alcohol, gluten, dairy, sugar. So very inflammatory. So we got to, look for the stuff that might be causing it.
Oh, and I had a question that I forgot, but this perfectly ties in. Can you, and you'll love this because we talked about this before, can you remove a tongue tie without widening the jaw and the mouth? So, the whole, do you expand or do you need, what's the order of events for that, on your opinion?
Yeah. Okay. So in and out, and it's hard because I have this conversation, 100 times a month.
Yeah.
But I would say anybody who has a tongue tie has a space issue because the tongue was tied down so the face couldn't develop correctly. Okay, the maxilla isn't big enough, the mandible isn't big enough because the mandible is the maxilla is the lid on the box. So oftentimes people have a tongue tie. They don't have space. They're high and narrow. Okay, I'm high and narrow. My tongue is wider than my arch. I didn't have a tongue tie though. But I was the world's biggest mouth breather. So I was able to learn to get my tongue to the roof of the mouth. So it's hard, Margaret, to give a blanket statement on this because my luck, the person asking this question has a palate like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And this
Yes.
person has a bigger fish to fry than tongue tie. So the tongue, or, your palate is supposed to be a nice U-shaped palate. If I see something that's more boxed off on the front, narrow V, if there's not going to be room, then we got to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. What
gets challenging is there's the real world and then there's the ideal world. And I don't want to discount any professional, any doctor that says, no, you need space. But I also have had tons of clients who are narrow like I am. My tongue fits beautifully in the roof of my mouth. It doesn't touch the tooth. It's up there. As the tongue gets more tone, it gets smaller. Now, it's not
what I've noticed. That's what I've noticed with mine. Yeah. Okay. That makes me feel better because I'm like, it's like you saw, like when we were doing the rubbing the, like it feels smaller than it used to be because it's more muscular or something. I don't know.
But yeah, it doesn't go, your tongue, you guys, is not going to go from a size 14 to a size 2. Okay. And there are cases where it's like, oh my gosh, your tongue is gigantic. Yeah. They're, and they have, it makes my skin crawl to think about how segmented out. But the debate that I have, and I have had it with lovely doctors, and, they say, well, most people who are going to have a release, I want them to do expansion first. And I said, yeah, I get that. But I also know how many hundreds of clients that I have had that are less than perfect. They have no interest in doing adult ortho. They have no sleep concerns. They're Epworth. They sleep with their mouth closed. They don't snore. They have no sleep disordered breathing. Their Epworth sleepiness score is low. So I'm looking at all of those things. Those doctors also, most of them also have clients that they sell. And so I always just say, you want to just ask questions. Don't be afraid to get another opinion. You don't have to do that doctor's appliance if that's not, and that's the hardest thing really for adults, is because they'll say, yep, you need some space. I have this appliance for you. And so it's hard because I never know the narrative,
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't want to be stepping on somebody's toes saying, they're trying to sell you something, but I also know how many night guards are sold, and night guards don't stop grinding. It records the crime because the crime is your body is calling 911.
Yes.
So it's difficult. And I can say this, I have had clients with other doctors where I thought, and we all look at Dr. Zoggy to be as our godfather, you know, and so I revere what he says. And I have had some clients that I thought, oh my gosh, they're not going to pass muster here, and they were fine. They were narrow and crooked teeth, but that wasn't an important thing for them. And so it was an option. Of course, we always put it in our reports. I always say, hey, there is a space issue. I recently had a doctor say, we don't have enough space. Okay, I respect that. But it is hard because I have had this debate with doctors when they're like, hey, could you just send us a picture of your clients and I'll let you know if they need expansion first? And again, I feel like sending a picture, unless it's obvious, I feel like, and that's what I told this one particular doctor. I said, but I work in the real world, and sometimes the ideal world just doesn't work. So I think so many things have to be taken into consideration. Airway trumps everything. And if I've got somebody who's narrow, like I said, I'm narrow, I sleep wonderfully, blah, blah, blah. If somebody doesn't have any of those other big red flags for sleep apnea and that kind of stuff, then they can get more than one opinion. Obviously I'm the puzzle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yes, that's it. That makes total sense. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. What to do if a toddler has a high, narrow palate and crowded teeth on top? I thought a tongue tie release might help him, but your first IG live communicated that he is too young for the procedure. The tongue being in the roof of the mouth is going to help. And yes, a toddler is too young to have a release, because if the kiddo can't cooperate with having the work done, I mean, the wound care and that kind of stuff, they can't comprehend, comply, and cooperate with therapy. They have to have volitional control of their muscles. They've got to be able to do the work with you. If not, we're going to have a kiddo who heals back down. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of defer this because I want to answer all these at the end when I talk about Mommy, Myo, and me. Okay. But when a toddler has a high, narrow palate, being aware of the tongue tie and then getting a head start. And that's what we talk about with the Mommy, Myo, and me, because that program is there because parents are asking the same question. Okay, now you've opened my mind to this, and now you're not going to help me do anything about it. That's not. And so
that's a good fit for that situation. Yeah. Program. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk more about that when we get through, because I want to get to the myofascial stuff. This one, what are my thoughts on using a Myo Munchie trainer for kids under 9 who have crowding? Any harm? Worth the money to reduce need for orthodontics? I have a lot of clients who use them. I don't use them in my therapy because I work to fix behaviors, but it certainly, I don't think it would hurt. I have had some parents say that they thought it was an expensive tube toy for their kiddo. I have had other parents say that they really worked well. I would say you'd have to do some more homework. But we'll talk about the need to reduce the need for ortho here in just a little bit. Margaret, this one's for you. And I'm asking it so that you can have a brief answer, because it's, about the methylated folate and stuff. So
gotcha. Yes.
This question says, does taking methylated folate and methylated B vitamins help future children not have tongue tie issues? I'm well versed in, well, I wouldn't say I'm well versed. I stay out of that rabbit hole with the MTHFR gene mutation and all that, because I always tell my clients there is such a huge part of that. It's a huge thing. There's so many things related to it. It's a handicap for a lot of people, because a lot of people are like, oh, I have this, and
yes.
They allow it to define all of this stuff. So I always tell my clients, I want my knowledge to be an inch wide and a mile deep, and I want that to be in my lane, the stuff I'm an expert on, stuff that I feel very confident in. I don't want to pretend to be able to talk about something that I can't talk that intelligently about. However, if you want to touch on this, I know that this is more in your wheelhouse, but let's not spend all night there.
Yeah, because it is, like you said, it's one of those rabbit hole things.
Yeah.
That, short answer is there's the whole debate on, different kinds of vitamins being easier for the body to absorb. So folic acid is a form of folate that the body has trouble converting from folic acid to folate. Some people's bodies have trouble doing that. So the theory behind why adding in a methylated form, the folate form of that, into the body is that could help with midline defects that occur in the folds, of the body as the baby's developing. So the theory, there is theories on that, and there is some evidence, but there was a lot of flaws with the study that they did that said that there was a correlation. They did not track the kinds of folate used. It was a very small sample size, and it was a retroactive study, which is a recall. So, hey, by the way, it would be like if someone asked me, hey, Margaret, 2 years ago when you had your son, did you eat anything that was, fortified with folic acid or iron? I'm like, I don't know. So I did talk about this the other day, though, in my Instagram stories. So on my page, I have a highlight it says my baby's tongue tie story. And if you tap towards the end of that, I have like 4 or 5 slides discussing this, and that kind of will fill that out a little bit further as far as the debate on whether it matters, if it matters, and what else you can do about it. So,
perfect. Good job. Yeah,
I could have gone a lot deeper into that, but I'm like, we'll just put a pin on it because, you know, it's one of those topics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, sister, stay out of there.
Yes. It's a black hole. It's literally
Yeah.
a black hole.
Yeah. Oh, and I've started reading it before. I'm like, okay, I'm going to tackle this stuff. And then I'm like, oh gosh.
It's so deep.
Right. Okay. This one is, it says, what might be some reason it's difficult for an adult to read out loud? Feels like my tongue gets swollen, mouth fatigued, and start mispronouncing words after only 10 to 15 minutes. Do I need to build up reading tolerance with more practice, or could it be something else? So my first thought when I read that is obviously a tongue tie.
Yeah.
People who have tongue ties, the common symptoms are things like talking is exhausting for me. I've been called bitchy and antisocial and unapproachable and all these things. There, guys, right, Margaret?
That was me. I had trouble.
Yes. There is a social implication of a tie. And so, and I get parents that say, nah, I'm not going to worry about it. Johnny can worry about it when he gets married if he wants. And I'm like, there is a social implication of this. And I got to witness it with both a male patient and a female client, and they weren't together, you know, they were separate, but each of them, the girl said, I my whole life, I was always yelled at because I had this meek voice. I couldn't talk out loud. I wasn't, you know, didn't have volume. I just a wallflower. I was called unapproachable or bitchy. You know, everybody just thought I was just bitchy my whole life. But I'm not social because I don't want to go to a party and talk with somebody. And dang it, if I have a glass of wine, I'm going to stumble over my words or mumble or no. So I just don't do it. So that was kind of her story. The guy did the same thing, you know, because I asked about like their personality and socially, that kind of stuff. And he said, I just thought I was shy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know, at first I just, you know, I'm big on having to have a personality match to do therapy with somebody. And I really struggled at first. Like, am I the best bet for this guy? Because I felt like I was just pulling teeth, you know, I am always laughing and he was just really shy and reserved. The beautiful thing, I got to watch both of them go through therapy, and they are beautiful humans. Their personalities came out. They love to talk because it wasn't a chore for them.
Yes.
And so that's when I read this one, that's the first thing I think. Was talking, were there any things for you, Margaret, in that area?
Yes. That's one of the biggest things I noticed. And I talk a lot, like when I have consults, when I'm explaining test results to someone, I need to be able to talk. And I did not realize how stressful it was for me to, because I'd be like, I want to form my words correctly. So it's like, I called it a type A tongue. My tongue was like, we've got to do the right pronunciation. And it was like a constant thing in the back of my mind. And now speaking is easier for me. I can pronounce things without a problem. I mean, it changed. Like if I just got that alone, I mean, and it used to be my mouth would get dry after I talked a lot. My face would hurt because I was, you know, using all these muscles instead of my tongue. And it's made me want to be able to communicate clearer and have, I don't know, it's just changed that. Yeah, but absolutely. So whenever I hear someone say, talking wears me out, I'm like, does it? Okay. Like, I remember what that was like. So yeah.
I have clients that are like big time speakers, and I just don't know how they've done it, you know, because when I first meet them, and then when I see, you know, what they're fighting against, I can see why, you know. So I don't think that this person asking this question, do I need to build up a reading tolerance? I think that you need a myofunctional exam because I'd be curious to see what else is going on, because there's a lot more symptoms uncovered.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple more quick ones. Can you show some examples of tongue exercises that strengthen the neck area? What I do doesn't strengthen the neck area. So generally, when a tongue is involved, you know, whenever we work the tongue, we're working the complete orofacial complex, also the cervical neck muscle. So tension is really involved. But if somebody is coming, you know, if I'm meeting somebody and they're saying, hey, I've got all these neck complaints. I'm thinking, okay, what else do you have going on? Do you have a tongue tie? So, but yeah, I don't do exercises that strengthen the neck area. Okay, next one. Thoughts on BioBlock or ALF for a 4-year-old? Tried Myo, but he was too young to cooperate with exercises. What do you think of Vivos airway expanders for adults? I have a very narrow palate and airway. Again, I really kind of stay out of the the appliance debate. Every doctor, they have their preference, okay? My own personal experience with my youngest daughter who has sleep apnea and upper airway resistance. We went to, and I'm not going to say the name of the appliance because I'm just not going to, but we went to one place that was like, hey, you know, here, write a check. She can have this appliance next week. I got another opinion. And that doctor was like, but she needs a different expansion. So the one appliance was going to go sideways. And then what my daughter needed was anterior posterior because she had retractive cervical pull headgear. So when we're talking about backwards faces, she's got beautiful teeth, but her head was, I mean, everything was retracted back. Both of her jaw joints are destroyed. And she has night terrors all night and, you know, all of that stuff. So absolutely, case by case basis, on appliances. So what I do tell parents, get more than one opinion. You don't have to go, you know, first of all, you want an airway focused orthodontist, you know, or somebody who is, I shouldn't say orthodontist because a lot of fantastic dentists have, you know, transitioned their practice really that way. But ask questions, get multiple opinions. If something makes sense to you and sits on your heart, perfect. I have had a couple clients, I will say this about the ALF, it's slow. It's nice and slow. And when I've had kiddos that come to me and they're like wetting the bed, 13 years old, grinding their teeth, ADHD, you know, all of the big things for childhood sleep apnea. The same kiddo, you know, goes for a sleep study. It's so bad they call it inconclusive and sweep it under, like there was no plan of attack next. So finally I said, okay, here's my concern. We need something a little faster than what's going on. And they did end up, that family did end up going somewhere else, getting some other opinions. And the other orthodontists were like, Carmen is right. This slow process isn't working for this kiddo. So they're definitely not a cookie cutter. Okay, Margaret, for you. And I think this is, I'm going to ask you this. And the two questions and then segue into, let's go into the fascia stuff. Yeah. So this comment, or this one says the connection of forward head posture and tongue tie. So the only thing I say on that is often also it's an airway thing too. So a tongue tie is a connective tissue issue. And Margaret's going to talk about that. But then if somebody is a mouth breather, like oftentimes they'll be having forward head posture because it changes this angle here. So either way, they're bad. Forward head posture, you guys, for every inch your head is forward, it's 12 additional pounds on your spine. These little ladies we see aren't always osteoporosis cases. So a lot of them are, it's a structural issue, okay? And then this other question for you, Margaret, is how soon after you release did you feel the fascial restrictions loosen up? So I'm gonna just let you take it away if you'll answer those questions and give us a lesson on the fascia.
Yes, absolutely. So first I'll answer the question about how soon did I feel release from that, and then we'll talk about the forward head posture and how that connects to the connective tissue. So for me, I felt immediate release, like on the table. And again, I'm very tuned into how my body feels. Like, you know, I could go into the chiropractor and be like, hey, this one's off, that, like, I could tell, you know I'm very in tune. So I was on the table and was feeling things release. I felt my psoas release. My feet were like this when I came in, and when I left, they were like that because my whole psoas just relaxed. That had been tight for who knows how long. So it was an immediate release. And then it just got better. and better. Like, I mean, and obviously there is a phase of healing that's when the wound's retracting. Some days I would have days where I feel a little tighter, and other days I feel super loose. And it's just with that remodeling that's happening when you have had the lasering done, and then how the rest of the body's responding to that. So it's totally normal to have that fluctuate. But yeah, none of the old things that I would have, like the headaches that I would have, they're always centered on the left side of my head due to that trapezius being stressed, as we'll talk about with the connective tissue. It's all connected. So yeah, so it was immediate, and it just kind of continued. Now, as far as forward head posture and how that connects to that whole kinetic chain. So first we'll define what this connective tissue, and I call it fascia just because the person that taught me, like, all of them pronounce it differently. Someone says fascia, someone says fascia. I'm like, it's tomato, same thing. Anyway, so yeah. But essentially, so actually the fascia is a connective tissue. And it is, you know, different from, so when you're like cutting open a specimen or operating on someone like a cadaver, or you're in a medical setting, the white stuff that they cut through to get to the organs, that white stuff is the fascia. And it's not only just on the surface of your body, like when you're, you know, going into the abdomen, like when someone does a C-section, when you have to go through that. It actually encases every single muscle fiber in your entire body. So that's every single muscle that you can think of on your anatomy chart. Is each little muscle bundle is encased in fascia. Every single bundle that makes up your bicep is encased in fascia. Every single bundle of muscles that encases your trapezius and all of those other muscles and the teres minor and all of those it's all connective tissue, and it's all connected. So a way that I like to describe it as far as how it is connected is that with my orange analogy, I just love it because it really works. It's a visual. So if you've ever gotten one of those clementines, the little oranges that you peel, or even just a regular orange, when you peel it open, it's got all this white fuzzy stuff on it. So that is analogous to the tissue. But also when you section it out and you look at how each of those little, you know, the juice, the orange juice is held by and encased in all of these little connective tissue sheets. And so if you cut that and you look at that, that's the muscle is encased in that. So there's actually more nerve endings in your fascia than there is in your muscles, because the fascia encases the muscles. So some people completely miss that aspect because they're all like, oh, it's just a muscle dysfunction, it's just the muscles. And it's like, no, everything from your head to your big toe and from your shoulder to the tips of your fingers is all connected. Everything is connected to everything else. Dysfunction in one spot is going to show up in a different place. That's why when I got my release, I had differences in my left shoulder and my right hip, because there is a fascia sling that goes diagonally from there. If someone has forward head posture where their head sits more forward on their body, which, by the way, the fascia adapts to the positions that you put it in. So if you're constantly sitting over the computer and you're all hunched over, you're going to see changes to your fascia because it adapts to the position that you put it in. So if someone has forward head posture, besides that being affecting the airway, obviously, it's going to pull on the muscles of the trap so that your shoulders go up. And then that's going to bring your head forward. That brings your spine forward. It brings your pelvis forward. It brings your knees forward. It messes up your ankles. So this is why if you have forward head posture, you might feel pain in your hips. You might feel pain in your knees, because that connective tissue that's connected at the back of your head is also connected all the way down through your pelvis. So it's connected to everything else. And also it has neurokinetic properties. So it obviously it has those nerve endings. I got a question about chronic pain being connected to fascia. And there's absolutely connection there, because again, when we feel pain, it's those nerves, it's the reaction of those nerves in the body. So if there's more in your fascia than your connective tissue, that can be something you might want to look into, because it is very much connected with that. But fascia has lots of different properties. It has those neurokinetic properties where it the nerves transmission. It also has proprioceptive properties, so it can helps tell you where you are in space. So it's how when you're walking down the stairs, you know that you need to lower your legs so much so you don't, do that missing step, we've all done before, and you fall down the stairs. So your body uses that. It's that proprioceptive. It's like that sixth sense. It's almost like, if you think about it, the fascia is putting out these signals to your body of, okay, I've got a desk over here, and I've got my water cup over here, and I want to hit my leg because it's going to hit the stand, and my stand's going to fall over. It helps tell you where you are in space. And it also has lymphatic properties. So the lymphatic system that takes out the trash in our body flows through the fascia. So you've got this connective tissue that's everywhere. The lymphatic system flows through it. And so fascia as well, it has all of those properties, but it also has some endocrine properties too. So hormones go through the fascia and go through the lymphatic system to get out. So fascia needs to be moving and grooving. It needs to be able to slide and glide on top of each other. And when it's not, it can become stiff, and you can have symptoms like when you wake up in the morning and you're like, gosh, everything's so crinkly and tight and constricted, or you have that bilateral sling, like it's always your left shoulder and your right hip, and you're like, why isn't it both on the same side? My right hip and my left hip are fine. It's that sling relationship. You can have an issue in your shoulder that affects your hip. So you think it's the hip, but it's actually the shoulder, because it's all connected. But you want that to be able to slide and glide between each other. And that involves having good hydration. So making sure you're hydrated, making sure that your cellular, that's a word that I used to have trouble saying, cellular, not a problem anymore. Cellular hydration is good, so that you can make sure that fascia is able to move and slide and glide. So if someone, for example, gets hurt, and let's say you break your clavicle, and you're having to keep your shoulder in a sling, over time without it moving, and because moving is lotion for your joints, but it's also lotion for the fascia. Movement helps that fluid flow exchange happen. So if someone is, let's say they hurt their shoulder and it's in a sling, they're going to have to work to recover that full range of motion, because the fascia's gotten dehydrated. It can't flow on its liquid highway throughout the body anymore. Another visual for the fascia is spider web, like a liquid spider web that is, it's all over the body, and it is all connected. So tying back around with the tongue tie, the tongue is at the, it's at the base of that spine, and the cervical spine is connected to back in the back, but it's connected to that top part of your spine. And like you've said before, the tongue is the rudder on that spine. So if it has, like I had, where mine was anchored more on the right side, so my head was more like this, which made my shoulders go like this, which made my hip pop up, and then made me have issues with having one leg shorter than the other. I'm sure we've all been to the chiropractor where they're like, oh, your leg's shorter than the other. And you're like, I don't remember that being the case. So when I had, when you release that tongue, you're releasing the restrictions in that fascia that goes all the way down, because there's diagrams you can find online that show that tongue's up here at the top of the spine. Then you have other muscles in the pecs. You've got your diaphragm. The diaphragm is a big place where it goes through your muscles in your hip, in the psoas and the iliopsoas that goes along the side. And then it goes all the way down through your quad and some of the adductor, but also through your calf muscle and all the way to your big toe. So I kid you not, I had poor toe mobility on one of my big toes. If you try to lift just your big toe, try lifting up just your big toe, you're actually impacting all the way up to your tongue. So if you lift your big toe right now, that's all the way connected to your tongue. So no wonder after I got the tongue release, all of a sudden my hip mobility is better. My tongue mobility is better, obviously. My tension got better. My hips leveled for the first time in who knows how long. My traps started to balance out, and I could squat better. And it's because it's all connected. It's all connected. So it's literally, I've done a post on this before on my page. If you scroll down, you can see, but it is really connected. And I've documented that journey as well, as far as how it is all connected. So it literally is. You can have pain somewhere that you think that's where it is, and it's never where it hurts. It is never where it hurts. That's what I've learned from working with people, and then in my own experience too. It's very fascinating to me. So
that was so good. And and a couple things came to mind. So when you were saying all these things that got better, it fully explains why when I have clients that have their release done and I see them, right away for their therapy, they're like, I can breathe. Well, yeah, because you just the world's biggest uncomfortable bra or cord But when you're talking about that connection going down through the diaphragm, like when somebody has, I mean, you guys, we all have to get away from the silo mentality. There is not just one thing at work here.
Yes.
There's not just that.
Nothing works in isolation. It's all.
Yeah. And there's nothing in the body that says, oh wait, this is the heart doctor, and this is this is Margaret's space, and this is Carmen's space. When tongue tie, it is a connective tissue issue. You rolled forward, you're compressing your diaphragm. When people are saying, why do I have digestive issues? Well, you're not breathing right, you're not swallowing right, you're not chewing right, and your air swallow, so many different things. Your fight or flight versus rest and digest is completely out of whack.
Yes.
But what's really cool is more and more in my community, more chiropractors. I just had a consult the other day with one that's like, I am a chiropractor and I've been working with tethered oral tissue for 20 years, and so many chiropractors, you guys, and I'll say this, if you think you have a tongue tie and you're going to the chiropractor, have that conversation. They may not have any idea, but if you're going to a crack and collect guy, you're a renewable resource, and that's the thing. People go and they just get adjusted, they walk away. A lot of my clients who have the work before and after, I mean, the chiropractor is like, okay, this is voodoo. This is so weird that people, and I have clients that say, I had my release done and my lifelong constipation went away and the bottom of my feet quit hurting. And I remember the day she did that, and I was like, you're crazy.
I'm like, I believe it. I believe it. Yes.
And now, years later, I'm like, yeah, I know why your constipation went away and why the feet quit hurting. And the other thing, so breathing came to mind, and then chronic pain. Chronic pain, anxiety, and depression. And I don't want to minimize it at all, because I know mental health is not something I've ever had a struggle with, but I certainly respect and understand that journey for other people. But I'm floored by the people who I meet who have significant tongue ties that have been being medicated for anxiety and depression. Anxiety is a big one, since like third grade. Never breathe right. But then the amount of chronic pain in people who have a significant tongue tie and they don't sleep. You guys, if you don't sleep, Margaret and I could talk about sleep till the cows come home. Yes. If you don't sleep, your body is not rejuvenating. It's not cleaning out the cells. The mitochondria in your cells is not making energy for you to move your body for that moment. You have to move your body. And that's one thing, when I have clients, Margaret, where they're maybe not feeling like they felt the initial release of the tension, and then they feel it coming back. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Nothing, I haven't done. I'm like, but you got to move your body too. Like,
yes,
because I'm not the only piece of the puzzle. Motion is lotion. But people who have chronic pain, a lot of you guys are suffering, and you may have like root cause.
What's at the root of that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What is that chronic pain? A lot of the time, chronic pain is, you're feeling it one place, but the cause of it is a couple joints down. Margaret, I don't know if you ever knew this, but I used to have a business. I was a Rossiter coach, and a Rossiter.
Oh, really?
I just didn't have time because I'm too busy with Myo.
Yeah.
But that is connective tissue stretching, and it was just like, trying to educate my clients in, the hydration and the moving and all. But the biggest thing is I could have somebody saying, okay, my lower back on the right is bothering me. And I would work on the left quad, or I would look further, that's what they always taught us is, it's probably 2 joints away. And the muscles are shortening. So those of you computer workers, if you have your hand in a certain area, your body is like, oh, like me with my hand on the mouse all day. I have to not do that because my pec muscles will shorten and hold me here. So you start making those changes, and it's like a snowball. So the takeaway is, if you're getting medicated or treated for all of these things, and somebody's just only looking at, well, here's a pill, you're not sleeping.
they're not addressing what's, it's like an iceberg. Like you see up here, and it's like, this person is anxious and has other health stuff going on. They can't sleep. And then it's like underneath is like, the nervous system's completely dysregulated. You need to be able to switch between the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. You don't need to be stuck, in the sympathetic, which honestly, honest to goodness, I think for a lot of my life, I was stuck in that sympathetic. And I've talked about this a little bit, but someone had asked on here, I saw about being anxious, being less anxious. I absolutely am. Like I've told you this before too. When we're reviewing my results, I feel like inside my body, I'm calmer. There is a calm. I'm not like the way I like to describe it is, a bird cage with a bird in it. The bird's not going in, and like the feathers are like inside my body. Like my inside of my body is not like a bird flying around freaking out inside a cage. It's calm. It's quiet now. And also I didn't realize how much my neck would hurt and how much my shoulder would hurt and my back would hurt, like the muscles, and soreness. Like I could do a workout and I'd be sore for a long time because, I tweaked something because of the compensation that was going on. Because when you think you're activating one thing and there's compensations, you might not be activating that. You might not be activating your lats back here. You might be activating your traps, which are going to give you headaches and make you feel horrible and have tension. So I noticed that I have so much less, like my tension level in my body is so much less that just the other day I was like, I remember what that was like, what it was like before, and now I'm here after, and I'm like, it doesn't occupy my brain space as much, thinking about, oh gosh, what am I going to do? Because it is a benefit for me because I do know about this. So when I had the release, I was like, all right, I know that I need to work that side that was a little bit tighter. So I'm going to do some extra releases here. I'm going to stretch this and do that. I did have the advantage for that. But the cool thing now is that it's like, I used to spend so much time doing, the certain kinds of foam rolling or releases or with these little balls all the time, like, oh, I got to release this, release. And now it's like, I do it a couple times a week. And it's not like I've got to go in and do this or I'm going to have a horrible headache tomorrow, or I've got to go do this and, or I'm going to be extremely sore. It's freed up my life to not have to be thinking about that all the time. It's been very powerful for me in many ways, but those two, yes, absolutely.
And so this topic is great, and I want to segue in because I know, and then I'll talk about Mommy, My Own Me. Because I had a client, and she was, I loved her, but she emailed me at first. And she wanted to know if I worked with plus size clients. And I thought that was kind of weird because I just thought, I work in wellness, but that it's not like, what your lane of expertise. So I thought, and I think what she wanted to feel better. She wanted to sleep better, but basically, hold on.
I can see you. You're back. Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on. Oh, there we go.
Hold on.
You're back now.
One of these days I'll remember that. Now you look like
I can hear you.
Okay, now you're good. So,
you're good.
So going back to her, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to her, I think she just had all these other things out of control in her life. And she had a new baby, so I was like, I don't think you can have a new baby and label yourself at, like, oh my gosh, give yourself some grace, my friend.
Yeah.
So I was trying to tackle her, the tongue tie. Like, Carmen, can you work with me? Can you keep your pie hole shut about anything else? And we're going to just tackle the tongue tie because that's what she wanted to tackle at that time. So she had her release and she didn't really feel like, I always say that that tension release is the drug of choice that everybody's after. Everybody wants that. And she didn't really feel that afterwards. And so she was kind of like, just, I don't know. So from that time till the time we finished therapy, when we finished, I said, okay, so tell me what you experienced. How was that for you? And she said, I feel like $1 million. Wow. And I wasn't expecting that. And she goes, I feel like $1 million. I just cannot put my finger on what it is. Feel that release, that tension release. But in that amount of time when we finished, by the time we were done, guess who was moving her body and exercising every day? She was sleeping incredibly.
Yes.
She was eating better, you know, she was, and so she was then in a position for making further changes, you know. So it was like where that domino was to push her over. But she was one of my proudest cases, but the unique, because I had never had somebody say, you know, approach me like she had, and then to say, I felt like $1,000,000. I just don't know how, you know.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to talk quick about your, like, what you do. And I know you have a course on metabolism. And the reason the reason I thought about her and I wanted to ask you about this is because I only do so much for my clients, you know, and so there's times like I think of her where she could 100% do a course, you know, she was busy, and I think she would 100% be successful with doing a course to learn to help her with those last few things, you know. So because most of my mamas, I always say my sweet spot of my clients, I have always said was middle-aged mamas who are tired of feeling like dog poop.
That was me.
Yeah. But interesting is Facebook, you know, or my Google Analytics tells me that it's 25 to 34. And I'm like, I really feel like it. But I have so many ladies that are like, I just feel terrible. I don't eat right. I have no energy. I'm not sleeping. I have chronic pain. I'm being medicated for this stuff. So I thought of you and your course. That's why I was like, hey, can I do it? Will you talk about that? So give us a little bit of information about it. I know it's not available yet.
Yes.
But my audience or the mamas here or whatever, that it might be just a feather in their hat that they need at some point.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So I have been in the functional nutrition field since 2014. So I've been, you know, working one-to-one with people and also with exercise, because I do also have an exercise component of my services regarding the lymphatic system and fascia and all of that as well. But I do that, but I also do the nutrition component. And over the years, I have seen certain things that I have to explain multiple times to things that are foundational to everyone. Things that I see most commonly people sabotaging themselves with that they don't realize they are. And most of us, you know, think that, for example, maintaining health is, you know, eat less, exercise more. Like that's what everybody always says. And it's like, there's more to the equation. There's more to that puzzle than just those two. And so my goal with creating the course was that I wanted to take all of that stuff that it might take you working with me one-to-one for a year to get all of the pieces that I fill in the course. But it's in one place and it's at a affordable price point for everyone to be able to access that and go through the course with me. So the course itself is going to be an 8-week course, but there is 4 weeks of where you actually are, you know, there's weekly lessons, and then there is 4 weeks of implementation. So you get to have a month of support where we're all implementing the things that we've learned together, and you're actually putting it into practice. And the course is just on, it's called Metabolism Rehab is what it's called. And I've had that name in my head ever since I started working with people where they're like, well, I feel like I need to lose weight and I'm doing the right things, but nothing's happening and I'm just trying harder and it's making it worse. Or I did this plan that someone told me to, and now I'm doing the rebound thing where you lose 5 pounds, gain 10, you lose 10 pounds, you gain 15, like all of that. And so over the years, seeing that happen, I have come up with framework to help that actually help you do things in a way that's supportive of your entire physiology. So your hormones, your nervous system, especially being women, because this is a women-focused course. So sorry, any guys that are watching, but this is for women only, and of all stages of life. Because one of the big focuses of the course too is stress management. So we talk a lot about, here's ways that you can stress yourself out that you don't know that you're stressing yourself out, like in your life and in your eating habits and in other lifestyle habits. So all of that's compressed into those modules, and there's video modules, and then there's also exercise in there as well, because I have actual videos of me demonstrating some of the techniques that I teach and there's exercise videos that accompany those 4 weeks of implementation. There's exercise videos that accompany that. And there's also live calls. So it's you go through the materials, but then there's live calls every week with everyone else that's doing the course so that you can kind of connect with them. But I've been working on it since June or July. So it's going to launch. We're going to have a open registration a little bit over a month from now. We're going to be opening the registration for the course. And I'm really excited because, like I said, it's all that stuff that as I teach all the time, but that I want in one place, and it's replicatable and people can come back and enjoy the content after. So anyway, I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. So. And I'll get some information on you so I can share that if there are any people here, you know, that
yes.
have it all the time, where people are like, okay, now what? You've got me, Carmen, now what? And again, I'm just a piece of that puzzle. So yay. And I'm glad I connected your story with her. I just loved her story when she said, I feel like $1 million. I just don't know what started, you know. So that's awesome. Okay, guys, I'm going to get ready to wrap up. Let's talk about Mommy Myo and me. This program, I was telling Margaret earlier, I was forced to pull this out of the vault. So I taught this program a few years ago when it was really after Dr. Stephen Lynn's book came out called The Dental Diet, when it was real popular. It still is probably really popular. I love that book. But our parents were like, okay, so I read Dr. Stephen Lynn's book and I know that my kid has concerns. What do I do? And I would say, well, your kid's not old enough. And I finally had to change it in my consult. So the free consults that I do with people for ages 3 and over, because I just kept having parents, you know, with younger kiddos. But what was really hard is they're like, okay, Carmen, so this isn't fair. You do such a good job educating us. And then you're like, oh, kidding, but you just got to wait. A lot of email or a lot of these questions that you guys have emailed that are like, okay, so you've taught me that my kid's not old enough, but I need to do something now. And so I was going to have my notes here, but I don't have them. So Mommy Myo and Me had to be created because to fill a void, basically for mamas to do something to help their kiddos. And I most recently, and I think I shared this last time, that I've been working with a little boy in a European country that has muscular dystrophy. And I started working with him, I think he was almost 3. So, but they needed me, like, Carmen, we just need you for the strength stuff. Like, we have this little guy, you know, can't bite on a blueberry, you know, that kind of stuff. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, you know, but it's all game-based kind of stuff because, you know, it's really fun when he's doing clicking or, you know, different things. So anyhow, so between talking with Margaret last week, knowing I was going to be talking to her tonight, my lecture for the Whole Brain Parenting Summit, and then I also am going to teach that lecture, the root cause lecture. I think I'm going to teach it on November 1st. So there'll be more information about that. But so basically these parents are like, okay, so you tell us all this stuff to look for and you're not going to help us do anything. So, right, Margaret, you can appreciate it. So I decided, spur of the moment last week, after getting beat up with all these emails, that I have to bring Mommy Myo and Me back out of the vault. So what this program is I call it a bridge program. You guys, it is not meant to be myofunctional therapy for your kid. It's going to be stuff that is more game-based, to help you bridge the gap. And what I mean by it's not meant to be myofunctional therapy is it's not meant to replace it. Mm-hmm. It's not to go against what your doctor says or whatever. It doesn't replace the fact that if you have a kiddo who has a tongue tie, that kiddo needs a release at an appropriate age when he or she will be successful. So the program is meant to bridge you from younger to older. So when I taught it before, I had kiddos that I think the youngest was 2. I think the oldest was like 12. It's not meant for a 12-year-old, but that was a family, a big family, lots of kids, and financially that was the option. Because I teach in those 10 lessons that it's $297 right now. I don't know how long I'll leave it there, but they were like, we just want at least to do something, you know? So in those 10 lessons, they're game-based things. So we're working on a couple things. we're not even getting into swallowing, obviously. The muscles have to work independently. I don't know anything about your kiddo as far as whether there's a tongue tie or not. If you have a severely tongue-tied kid, that's a little bit different situation. But we're going to work on, the goals are that we work on nasal breathing, that nasal breathing becomes the preferred method. So we have some different things. Proprioception. So be amazed at when I say, hey, can you lift your tongue? And some kiddos can't even figure out how to lift their tongue to the spot. So we've got lots of proprioception things. And then we're going to be doing, some of the rehabilitation stuff on the anterior and the middle and the posterior part of the tongue. That's fun. Like chocolate lick. What do you think that is? So it is stuff so that I can teach moms and dads how to implement it. I don't really assign, so if I say, hey, try and do this 10 times a day, it's not like it's formal therapy. The whole point of this program is to give the parents tools. So when I teach lesson 1, so lesson 1 will come out November 15th. It arrives in your inbox. It's got everything, like I teach live like this. So that will arrive. There'll be a password, all of that stuff. There's a workbook, a parent success guide, all of that stuff. So what you may find, depending, again, I say that it's for about age 3 to 5. Okay. When I had the 2-year-old before, there were some things he could do. And then mom would say, a couple weeks later, oh my gosh, he can do something else. So my goal is just to give you tools for the tool chest. Some parents will literally put the names of the exercises or the games on a card and draw them out of the hat. And always trying to make things a challenge or a race or a game based fun. And so you might get your stuff from lesson 1 and find that your kiddo can't do any of them. So, or might be able to only do 1 or whatever. So you keep trying, because this week and next week are going to be totally different. Then every 2 weeks, a new one will come out. So they're not necessarily, they don't have to work independently of each other. And I've chosen things that can just be, picked. You don't have to have this building blocks. And so, as these additional lessons come out, then the parents can say, oh, so you're going to want to have dedicated time every day to do myofunctional therapy games with your kid. But if they don't want to do chocolate lick, well, then maybe they want to do ding dong dang,
Yeah.
And so it's all, and sometimes they want to pick, and then maybe tomorrow you get to pick, and that kind of stuff. So it's really focused to work on those things, the tongue posture, the mouth closed, the tongue up. But again, if you have a severely tied kid, remember, some of this stuff will be difficult. But these are tools that there's going to be something in there for everybody. So that program, I'm going to leave it open, you guys, until November 4th. Then I'm going to close it, because I pulled it out and I'm just throwing everything back in fast forward motion so that I can bring this program, because of the teaching summit and all of this stuff. Then I'm going to close it back up. And then I'll open it again next year. So I want it to kind of go hand in hand with the lecture that I'm going to teach on the 6 things that parents need to understand about craniofacial development. So I'm going to teach root cause, and I want to have those parents be able to enroll also. So how you get enrolled. I tried to make it easy because, again, I haven't built it out on my website or anything. So there's a button here on my Instagram that says to pay. It's $297. You'll pay. It takes you to PayPal. I obviously get that information. Then I have your name and your email so that you get put into the email, the sequence for when it comes out. So I think, Margaret, can you think of any questions about the program that I didn't cover?
Let's see. Well, I think there was the one that I had said earlier, practical ways to reduce need for orthodontics in kids without crowding, or, helping with crowding. So that could be something.
Okay, absolutely. And that's the whole thing. That goes to tongue posture. And so working on these things. So we'll be working on strength. We'll be working on coordination. We'll be working on neuroplasticity, these neuromuscular connections. It really anything. And I did all that stuff with Margaret. I didn't teach Margaret chocolate lick.
I haven't heard of that one, but it sounds like I would like it.
Right? Or lizard lipstick.
Nice.
But the whole thing is to give you things that are similar to what I teach every day with kiddos. That is, the moms and dads have to be the conduit of therapy. So going back to, trying, and that's a big thing that parents are trying to do, is prevent ortho. So they need to first see, is it too late? Is the kid already crowded? But tongue up, mouth closed, lip sealed, nasal breathing. And then I'm going to just kind of dangle a carrot, because when I teach on November 1st, when I teach the root cause, the 6 things, nasal breathing, making your kid chew, all of these things. So I unpacked some stuff out of Dr. Stephen Lynn's book.
That's awesome.
This is really, when I teach, I always teach the things that, parents can. So the 6 things, that's been around forever. So I'll be busy this weekend doing the workbooks and all of that stuff. If anybody has questions, I also did put a link right here in my profile also to email me. So we're just fast forwarding everything. And then, Margaret, I'll get some stuff from you about your course for my clients. And I can give you something on Mommy, My Own Me for your
that'd be perfect. And that's awesome that because Stephen Lynn, a lot of my people follow, like they follow his page, and he posts a lot of cool stuff, and it's kind of intriguing because it's like that's what you're gonna be talking about. So it's really cool.
When I teach, I always just, I want somebody to be able to take away from this, and and so when I say, tongue ties matter, or like all of these things, so kids shouldn't snore, kids shouldn't have huge tonsils, that kind of stuff. So I have kept you here long enough tonight. How about we start enjoying our Friday night? I love
this was fun
in the house. Yeah, this was great. The fascia part was wonderful. So I can't wait to see what the rest of these comments were. And I'll make sure that these questions get answered. So you guys, thank you so much for joining. We only had one technical glitch. And if my dog Ruby didn't have to take a pill at 7 o'clock every night, but one of these days I'll remember to shut that darn alarm off. So you're very welcome, Amy. I'm glad to see that you were here. Thank you to everybody else. And most importantly, thank you, Margaret.
Yes, absolutely. This is so fun. I love this. I love talking about this.
I will talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.